Dear colleagues, we are today 2 days before the opening of COP28 in Dubai, and we know the world is on a roughly 3 degrees pathway, double the objective of the Paris Agreement goal of 1.5 degrees. We are late and we are not doing enough. In this context, it is clear we need to use all available levels at our disposal to lower our CO2 emission and decarbonize our economies. And nuclear energy is clearly one of the levers to decarbonize our economies. All international experts are sending us the same message, whether it is the IPCC, the IEA, or IAEA. Without nuclear energy, respecting our climate objectives will be much more difficult and much more costly. But the deployment of nuclear energy faces several obstacles. One of the main obstacles is financing. And today, neither the European Commission nor the World Bank or regional development banks are financing nuclear energy. Unlocking those financing will be a key element of the nuclear renewal. Another challenge is the development of a robust industrial value chain. We need to ensure this value chain is independent from unreliable partners, that it provides us with the security we need to build and operate our plants. And for that to happen, we need to ensure a certain level of cooperation between our countries, which share the same common vision that nuclear energy is part of their energy future. Another key challenge for the deployment of nuclear energy is skills. I mentioned it earlier. In France alone, we know we will need to create an additional 100,000, or we need to recruit an additional 100,000 people in the next 10 years in the nuclear industry, notably to develop our national EPR program. And as nuclear energy is being relaunched across Europe and across the world, we know finding the right skills to deliver on our ambition will be key. To discuss these key topics, we have today a distinguished set of panelists with Marie Eng, Minister of Export Promotion, International Trade and Economic Development of Canada, Joseph Sikela, Minister of Industry and Trade of the Czech Republic, Dan Dragos Dragan, Secretary of State in the Ministry of Energy of Romania, Rafael Grossi, Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, and Thierry Breton, EU Commissioner for Internal Market. Let me now turn to the first part of our discussion, nuclear supply chain security and innovation. Commissioner Thierry Breton, I have 2 questions for you today. How do you see the place of nuclear energy in the EU's industry future, and how will the EU's Net Zero Industrial Act help to ensure a strong nuclear supply chain in Europe? You give some insights in your former speech, but if you can dig into detail.
No, thank you very much, Agnès, needless to tell you that, yes, definitely, every part of nuclear energy is now considered as a critical industry in Europe. So I think it's extremely important for all of us to realize that it's a huge gap that we achieved, but yes, we consider that first, of course, we have more than 1 million jobs in Europe, so that's a very important sector, of course. But we know that we need more. We know that we need to attract young talents. We mentioned this earlier this morning. And of course, in order to do this, you need to make sure that in all our new energy proposals or industry, nuclear will have its own place. And that's extremely important. That's extremely important because, as you mentioned, Mrs. Minister, dear Agnès, we consider now, at the level of the EU, when we consider that an industrial sector is strategic, which is the case for nuclear, we consider the whole supply chain. And that's extremely important. We work all along the supply chains, being able to provide what is necessary to develop this industry, of course in Europe, but also with partners, reliable partners outside of Europe. In this perspective, I just wanted to mention there is a very interesting project which is called in Cadarache, Zulorovich project, which is extremely important to offer the ability for the whole industry to work with the most advanced technology and a research center to make their test up and running. So, and we support, of course, this initiative, as you know. But we have many others. Our joint research center, I mentioned it in Karlsruhe, is definitely up and running with 450 nuclear specialists working in critical areas and including, as I mentioned, SMR. So we are now reorienting our let's say, resources to support from where we stand the whole supply chain. One word, if you allow me, on permitting and financing. And this is where our Net Zero Industry Act is extremely critical. I just want to remind to all of you that this act, which has been, as I said earlier, voted by the Parliament last week, and which will be discussed in the Council, and hopefully we will engage the trilogue early next year, will give to the nuclear energy all its place. That's extremely important. It's here, we support it, we consider that it's absolutely critical to develop nuclear technology to achieve our decarbonized goals, and it will benefit, including for innovation, for SMR, for generation 4 reactors, and so on. We are discussing that for the refitting, of course. That's a discussion that will be discussed in the Council. But we want to make sure that all the private financing will be able to support this initiative. And we will encourage, through the taxonomy, private financing to support this initiative. Permitting also, standardization. As I mentioned, we will launch an alliance for SMR. That's not a small thing, early next year. That's a very important step forward, with many goals. Of course, financing, permitting, standardization. We will address all this to make sure that the industry will find in Europe a favorable landscape to develop their new technologies. I hope within the next few years. I hope before 2030. I know that there is some target 2030. We need to speed up. And I just wanted to let you know that we will do our part. By the way, we have a lot of things going in Euratom. Personally, I think that we need to increase the budget for Euratom, which is extremely important, including, by the way, for the role it plays for skills. So I know that it will be a discussion for the next budget. We call it MFF, but I will be there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me now turn to Minister Marie Eng. From a Canadian perspective, what can be done to increase the security of the nuclear energy supply chain and to build more capacities globally in nuclear technologies?
Well, merci beaucoup, Madame la Ministre. It's great to be here with you, and thank you so much for assembling this really wonderful panel. I'm thrilled to be here with my colleagues for this important conversation. And, you know, maybe I'll begin by echoing what you said earlier in terms of how you think about the frame of what the challenge is that is before us. You know, you're absolutely right. We have a real issue in front of us, which is a significant one, that is fighting climate change and getting to net zero, and at the same time to provide energy security to each of our countries and indeed around the world. Canada, of course, has been a nuclear leader for all of our time, quite candidly. And we know that whether it's the IPCC or the IEA, we know that nuclear is going to have to be a part of the mix in our future and needs to be prevalent in our future in order for us to tackle the issues of climate change that we're all facing. I'm thrilled that I'm here, on the stage with my colleague from Romania. A little later today, we're actually going to sign an agreement where Canada is going to provide refurbishment of the C1 CANDU reactor in Romania at Cernavodă. And this is in addition to an agreement that we signed to build 2 new CANDU reactors. And I mention CANDU because I think for those in this room in particular, the CANDU reactor has really made Canada a leader in nuclear energy. It is a unique technology. It's a heavy water reactor that uses natural uranium. And it's technology that was built in the 40s and the 50s, where Canada today still owns the IP for the CANDU reactors. And right now, there are about 30 CANDU reactors that are operating worldwide. And these reactors, think about it, these reactors today help the world avoid more than 30 million tons of greenhouse gas emissions right now annually. So if you think about it, it's about 6.5 million cars every single year that's taken off, and that's what's in place now. And the opportunities to doing more, I think, is very much there. We're going to have a few exciting announcements over the course of the next couple of days on CANDU, but also some of the other work that Canada is doing around nuclear. And maybe what I'll kind of spend a moment on is picking up what the commissioner said around small SMRs and small modular reactors. There's quite a lot of work that we have done in Canada that is supporting the development of small modular reactors. We're really proud we'll be the first G7 country in the world to have grid scale SMR. We'll have that before 2030, which is very, very exciting. But I think to answer the question, Canada is developing it, but I think we are looking for partners. We're looking for investment, and we've got to take some leadership at the government level, which we have. And we're certainly seeing that in the new class of the SMRs that's being developed in Canada. And it's really neat. I mean, I think I don't have to say it to this room in particular, but the very fact that SMRs actually are modular and they actually are able to be fabricated, constructed, and used, whether it's in urban settings or in Canada in remote communities, or uses for heavy industries, is really an innovation that we are all looking to develop both quickly, but also reliably. But I think maybe the thing that I would sort of say, in terms of an expertise from the Canadian perspective, and I think it's worthwhile talking about here, it is that energy security is something that we've been talking about many years. We've actually seen energy security at the fray when Russia invaded Ukraine. And I think it's brought the issue out to a greater urgency than it's been before. The war not only strained energy supplies or supply networks, it's actually also drastically increased the cost of traditional energy. It's made energy a geopolitical issue rather than just a straight market access issue. It's become a strategic asset that actually can be held hostage. We saw that here in Europe with energy security and the inability for Germany to get energy following the war. So I think what I'm really sort of saying from the Canadian perspective is that in this geopolitical environment, Canada is a tier 1 nuclear country. We have a fully developed supply chain for nuclear energy, starting from research to mining to fuel processing to technology development, manufacturing, and operations. We're a democracy, a country that respects the rule of law. We're a trading country where we welcome the exporting of nuclear energy, and of course, in these days, welcoming the investments of it as well. And it's a country that values openness and transparency and good governance. And when you consider the issues of fighting climate change, as well as energy security and what we're going to need in the world, I think you realize very quickly that the issue that is in front of us is an unprecedented one, and it's an unprecedented challenge, but it also means that there's also no time to waste. It means that all of us have to do this work and really try to do it together as we move quickly. And I guess my message to everyone in this room is that Canada is ready for that move, and we'll do it together with you.
Finally, let me give the floor to the Secretary of State, Dan Dragos Dragan. How is Romania planning to secure its value chain for the nuclear power plants you operate?
Dear Commissioner, dear Minister, dear Director General, dear ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be here today, and also have been already announced by the Minister Mary Nack from Canada. We will be able to sign the new rehabilitation of Unit 1 in Chernobyl, the nuclear power plant. So we, Romania, we are committed to continue our decarbonization plan. Due to the existing in-force law, by 2030, all the solid fossil generation units will gonna be switched off, and therefore we will continue by new accommodation of new renewable generation facilities, as well new generation on nuke. We are committed to continue our nuke program. That means besides rehabilitation on one unit in CANDU technology in Chernobyl power plant, we will also continue to have 2 additional units in Chernobyl, 2 additional CANDU technology units. Although we already started to think about small modular reactors, we are preparing the sites, and we are in the finishing the first phase of preparation on an old fossil generation power plant transfer to a new small modular reactors. So we are preparing, and we are on track, and we expect that by 2030 to have the first generation operational in Europe. We want to be the first on this side. Also, let me explain and let me point it out the issue of supply chain, which is being directly correlated with the security supply at this moment, and also linked to the competitiveness of European industry. This nuclear power plant that we are operating in Romania for more than 30 years assure more than 12,000 employees working places in Romania. Although with these 2 generation units, we will reach some of our objectives. Also, we need to point it out that using the Western technology, we have no dependency of Russian imports. This is very important due to the fact that our circular economy, production of nuclear fuel, domestic nuclear fuel, give us, let's say, more security in terms of supplying. We have to localize production and competencies on the European Union. On the first nuclear generation units, we contribute with local economy with around 40% of supplying of equipment. So therefore our aim and our target is to continue and to keep this supply chain on domestic economy, and also to increase our partnership with trusted partners from European and North Atlantic continent. What is important? It's important that on a European level, we have noticed that between 17 and 18, we have more than 30 gigawatts generated, commissioning, and all this was done with European companies, with European employees, and European innovation at that moment. I think we have to keep the track on, and also to find new financing possibilities for projects. I am very glad that together on a European level, all the state-minded nuclear states. We succeeded also to introduce on CFD for rehabilitation of old units, and I think this is a main step forward. So we are committed to continue our program. We are knowing that only by nuke we'll be able to reach our commitments on 2050 to reach the carbon neutrality, and therefore with strong cooperation between countries, between strong allies, I am sure that we are going to reach it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let me now turn to the second part of our discussion and focus more on skills. Yes. Take the mic. In France, with more than 3,000 companies and annual sales of around 50 billion euros, the French nuclear industry employs around 220,000 people, both direct and indirect jobs. As I said earlier, we plan in France to recruit 100,000 people in the 10 coming years. And this challenge of developing the right skills is clearly shared by all countries relaunching their nuclear industry. To discuss this topic of skills, let me first turn to Joseph Sikela. The Czech Republic is one of the most advanced countries when it comes to building new nuclear capacity in Europe, in particular on the Dukovany site. How does the Czech Republic intend to address the challenge of finding the right skills to develop its future new nuclear capacity?
Thank you, Agnes, Excellencies, dear ministers, distinguished guests. It is a great privilege to be here today, and this is really exciting in these turbulent times to be the part of the world energy community, because in the real world we are shaping the future of our countries, continents, and the whole world, because our civilization will be only successful if it will be able to produce enough energy and in the same time not destroy the planet. And I am pretty sure that we need energy, we will need even more, but the energy is to be safe, is to be affordable, is to be clean, is to be carbon-free, and one of the ways, and probably without the nuclear energy we will not manage. And my dear friend Fatih was using the word comeback. I rather prefer to use the word renaissance, because this is much nicer, and this is more about the creation and more about the shaping. And regardless if we are talking about a comeback or a renaissance, it means there was a certain break. And this break has a certain consequences. And for the new nuclear development, we will need a huge army of talents, a new pool of talents, which should ensure this safe development of the new nuclear resources. And this will be the key part of the success, because, and it was already mentioned, for example, in our case, we are just entering the final phase of the tender for the new large-scale reactor in the location Dukovany. But we know that in the current nuclear locations, we might go up to 4 new nuclear reactors. And when we talk about SMRs, so we consider up to 10 new SMR reactors in the future. So it means we will either double, or in very optimistic case, we might even triple the connected capacity. And for this, we will need new people. And it will be a challenge not only from the perspective of nuclear engineering and construction, but also in context of large construction projects in general. As I already mentioned, Europe has been benefiting from infrastructure dividend, with most of the large infrastructure and commercial projects are already finished. There has not been a need for such a large capacity in the workforce in related fields compared to the past or compare, for example, China. And the number of people in the field of civil engineering, mechanical engineering and electrical engineering will have to increase significantly. In Czech Republic alone, we expect at least 8,000 people for the nuclear development program. And if we are talking in Czech terms about 8,000, so I can imagine that in France you will talk about 20,000. And recently I got some figure, it was maybe even from IAEA, that the worldwide need might be up to 200,000 new nuclear and connected industries people. So in order to support the HR development, we established a working group on human resources for nuclear energy development that consists of representatives of ministries, industrial associations, regions, schools, and nuclear operator. The working group analyzed human resources needs for the construction of the new nuclear power plants, discussed suggestions for good practice in promoting technical education and identifying barriers and tools to increase interest in technical fields among students. For the construction of, for example, already mentioned 4 new-scale reactors in Dukovany and Temelín sites, the technical graduates, especially from secondary schools and universities, are needed. The demand is around 4,000 mechanical engineers, 2,000 electrical engineers, and 1,000 civil engineers. On the other hand, nuclear graduates seems to be less problematic considering the expected need and current number of students. Another 4 up to 5,000 of construction workers and technicians will be needed, and we know today some part we will have to cover by importing the labor force from third countries. So the main identified obstacles are the low attractiveness of the related fields and the difficulty of study in the perception of pupils and students. Secondary, there is effect of declining demographic curve. The capacity of classrooms and schools are the least problem. The working group resulted in a set of measures at the state administration level. So first, to strengthen the common professional base in disciplinary groups with direct impact on the construction and operation of energy sources. Second, to deepen the cooperation between schools and employers. Third, to educate school staff, including the involvement of practitioners and theoretical and practical teaching. Fourth, support a functional career guidance system. And fifth, last but not least, conduct a communication and marketing campaign of new nuclear power plants. Of course, there are specific initiatives of nuclear operator, focus on attracting candidates by motivational incentive like benefits, mobility program, internships, etc., staffing PR strategy, and. Czech universities are actively engaged in preparation for the Czech nuclear energy development program. New study programs related to nuclear energy have been introduced at Technical University of Ostrava and the University of West Bohemia. Also, Brno University of Technology is preparing a new program. This spring, the Faculty of Nuclear Sciences and Physical Engineering at the Czech Technical University launched a new research reactor, second one in this faculty, making it the 10th reactor in operation in the Czech Republic. So we have like a special reactor for like study purposes. Considering the joint initiatives, we see an opportunity to share experience with new builds and transfer lessons learned between the countries and companies. Such collaboration is possible bilaterally or under the existing schemes like the European Nuclear Education Network or within the idea of European Nuclear Academy. Strong and specific EU funding in these fields would help and definitely will have a value added. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think there is a lot of work ahead of us, but I think with successful collaboration, we will be successful. Thank you very much for your attention.
Finally, let me turn to Director General Rafael Grossi. How, in your view, can the IAEA help its member countries in developing the right skills on nuclear energy?
Thank you very much, Agnès. There are a few things that come to mind on this very important topic. For us to succeed, we need the women and men that are going to be carrying out these projects. Let me mention 6 areas where the IAEA is actually working. You know, as an international organization, we are service, basically. We do not see ourselves too much as a place for debate. We see ourselves as a place for concrete things that happen, coming, you know, from inspections to what we do in Zaporizhia to what we do in Fukushima. It's about service. Capacity building, the first. When it comes to capacity building, the IAEA has for many, many decades been working with member states to make sure that countries have the necessary skills to do whatever they are doing. And we have been working in particular with a focus on developing countries and countries that do not have the capacities or the infrastructure to train their people. Through virtual reactors, for example, we have a number that we do in cooperation with many countries, including France, that is helping us in this regard, and other countries. We have been training hundreds of nuclear technologists get their skills. I could amplify, but let me just cite it. When it comes to SMRs, when the international discussion about SMRs started, we immediately created an SMR platform. This SMR platform is actually a service that we give countries where we integrate for those interested in developing SMR projects to look into the different areas that are needed to get there. Not only from the nuclear energy engineering and technology aspects, but nuclear safety and security as well. So we expose them to all the aspects in a circular way, to all the aspects that you need to take care of when you are planning to go for SMRs. The other issue I wanted to mention is to create and to facilitate the necessary convergences that need to exist so that these projects can thrive. And I think in the course of the morning, not only in this panel, but in the course of the morning, we have touched upon, in general terms, issues like standardization, and I think the Commissioner was mentioning this, standardization, but also harmonization of regulatory practices that are indispensable. If we have a set of regulatory structures that are incompatible or duplicative, it is very difficult. Communication. Communication is essential. Nobody wants to work in a dying sector that is not interesting and that does not hold promise. And this is the kind of narrative that young professionals have been exposed to for the past 20 years. And of course, this has an effect. If the constant line of communication and the narrative is that nuclear is bad, that nuclear is dangerous, that nuclear is dying, you cannot expect to have thousands of people wanting to study and to get into this career, into this option. So it is good to see that the trends are changing, that in the public discourse, in the public domain, in the political decisions, we see things changing. But this is, of course, going to take some time. We need to learn also to communicate with a new generation that gets its information about what nuclear is and what nuclear can provide for them in a different way than we, for example, used to have in the past. And we are working with communicators, we are working with people in social media and in other channels, which are the ones that really, these engineers we need by the thousands, as the minister was saying, are going to be looking at when they want to get their information about nuclear. By the way, when it comes to this, and in the context of this first ever nuclear energy summit that we are going to have next spring, the minister was talking about, we are working with communities. The IAEA has a network of local communities. This is very important. The municipalities, the towns where you have the nuclear facilities, they turn to be normally the ones that are more favorable to nuclear, because these are the people who know the kind of jobs, the kind of opportunities, the kind of life that is brought to places with nuclear. And I see it everywhere I go. So I think this is important in terms of dispelling the kind of messaging that has traditionally, and I repeat, I think this is changing, but that has traditionally been fed through media in general. And let me, the last one, let me mention, which has not been mentioned so far, it is obvious that we have a general need for more professionals, but we do have a particular problem when it comes to gender. And in terms of gender, my observation as a head of an international organization is that when it comes to gender, there is a lot of discourse and very little action. So what we did at the IAEA to try to promote women careers in nuclear was to create channels for that. And we created something that is called, and it is very right that we are here in France, we created a Marie Curie Fellowship, which is financing the careers every year of 200 women in nuclear. It should be 2,000. Please help us. We need much, much more. But this is something that did not exist, and now we have complemented with something else, which is called the Lise Meitner program, which is for women already in their early stages of their career, not those who are finishing their master's programs or getting into a postgraduate course that is needed for them and for which they don't have the money. This is for women that need to be inserted or helped throughout their careers. So as you can see, Minister, when it comes to skills and the creation of skills, we know where we want to go. At the moment, nuclear, roughly speaking, employs 2.3 million people in the world. In the case of your countries, it's in the thousands. And we need to, as you were rightly saying, we need to double that. We know how to do it, and I think a few things are being done. But I would, if I had to sum it up, I would concentrate on allowing the means for people to pursue careers in nuclear, and I think here good articulation with ministers of education, science and technology is very important, not only our community, that's very important, and second, communication. People go where opportunities are, but for that they need to understand the realities and stop being fed false narratives.
Thank you very much. We are now coming at the end of our discussion, but maybe I would like to pick some key points you mentioned. We mentioned that the need to be supported by the communities and to invest in communities and build on that. We mentioned the fact that we need action plans, very concrete action plans to roll over an action towards attractiveness and skills. And that goes very early in age towards post-graduates in the high schools and universities. we need standardization and collective investment in new technologies, and I welcome the involvement as a European Commission in this new SMRs alliance, because I believe that could be key in the coming years if we want to achieve our objectives. And of course, the question of how to collaborate also outside Europe. And I think that your testimony was very inspiring. So we will keep the good work done and ensure that we will deliver. Thank you to all of our panelists for these great interventions.